それでは、改めまして、EducationUSA のウェビナーにようこそ。皆さん、EducationUSA の、東京のオフィスにおります、シルバと言います。よろしくお願いいたします。EducationUSA とは、ということなんですが、EducationUSA は、国務省が、世界中に展開をしている、ミッションといいますか、ネットワークになりまして、自分の力でアメリカを留学をしたいと思っている方々に情報を、提供するというサービスを行っております。私たちはアメリカ大使館、領事館等ですね、日本全国に6つセンターがございます。私たち EducationUSA 東京に関しましては、フルブライト奨学金で皆さんもご存知かと思うんですが、ジュセックというところとアメリカ大使館広報部と一緒に共同で運営をしております。このようなイベントであったり、フェアであったり、たくさんのことをしておりますので、ぜひ皆さん私たちを利用してください。留学に関して一番多い質問というのがやはり金銭的なお話になるかと思うんですけれども、奨学金の探し方というのをですね、アメリカ大使館のウェブサイト、そこから教育文化をクリックしていただいて、ちょっと下の方にスクロールダウンをすると奨学金情報というのがありますので、そこを見ていただいて、奨学金を探して、少しでも皆さんの留学に関する知識を増やしつつ、チャンスをまた倍増できればと思ってます。ぜひ、これも見てみてください。それでは、ウェビナーですね、インターナショナルエデュケーションウィークというのが今週やっているんですけれども、それに関連して4つのウェビナーをやってまいりましたが、本日が最終日、大学院に関して、特に STEM に関してのお話となります。よろしくお願いします。それからですね、グラジュエートスクールに関してなんですが、オンラインのグラジュエートフェアを今日の夕方行います。日本時間の4時から、STEM フィールド、5時30分からそれ以外の、専攻ですね、学科ということで、オンラインで大学院フェアを開催しております。ぜひ、皆さんこちらも参加してみてください。OK。それでは、ちょっと英語に変えさせていただきます。I would like to invite two special speakers today from the United States, the Georgetown University, from the George Washington University, I'm so sorry, Sean, and from the University of Kentucky, Audra. Thank you so much for participating today. Hi, Sean. Hi, Audra. Thank you. The floor is yours now. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll just do a brief introduction. My name is Sean Min. I am one of the associate directors here at George Washington University that's located in the nation's capital, Washington, DC.
Minasan konnichiwa. This is the extent of my Japanese, but thank you so much for joining us. My name is Audra Kreider. I am the Director of International Enrollment at the University of Kentucky, and we are delighted to be here with you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. If I may attempt to share my screen. I think I can. All right, is everyone able to see my screen? Audra, yes?
Yes.
Thumbs up? Okay, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead. So today we're going to be talking about STEM, particularly in graduate programs and PhD. So if there are any questions as we go through the presentation, feel free to go ahead and post them in the Q&A. As we see them, certainly we'll do our best to, if it's appropriate, to go ahead and answer them while we're presenting, but rest assured we'll do our best to get them at the end. And I know there's also some questions that were sent ahead of time as well, so we'll get to those as well. So I'm actually going to be talking about the master's program specifically, and then Audra will then go ahead and speak specifically about the PhD process. So a little bit about STEM for those of you who may not know. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There isn't sometimes an A, which is the arts, but for the purpose of this discussion, we're going to leave the A out and really just focus on the STEM piece. So what is STEM? It is a designation. It allows for students to come and study here in certain fields, particularly because there is a need here, specifically in the US, that allows for a lot of benefits for our international students who come and study in a STEM designated degree or program. And the benefits are what you see on this screen in terms of the specialized skills and higher earnings potentials around these fields that I'm talking about of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And the curriculum for a lot of these programs really allow our students to develop a critical thinking, ability to really solve problems at a very, very sophisticated and a very, very deep level. The STEM designation for these degrees also is very attractive to employers, and it affords our students a lot of opportunities, not just domestically here, but if you are to go back to your country, global opportunities and mobility as well, meaning across different industries. And for those that might be thinking more on the research side, particularly for a PhD perhaps, that's another opportunity as well where it would provide you some advanced opportunities should you decide to do a STEM designated program. And the last, but certainly not the least, and perhaps this is the most attractive for a lot of our international students, is the ability to extend their work authorization in the US through an OPT extension. So just to give you a little kind of context here, for students who graduate with a STEM designation in the US, you automatically get 1 year of OPT. For students who do a STEM designated program, you then would be able to be eligible for up to 2 more years. So it's 1 + 2, a total of 3 years of OPT here in the US. See if I can advance here. Okay. So STEM, as I just mentioned, is the science, technology, engineering, and math. And for those that may think, oh, well, it's just a pretty straightforward definition, it's actually a little bit more beyond what you may think. And so I kind of use this slide to have you expand and really to think about perhaps if there's a program or a major that you are thinking and you want to make sure or check to see if it's STEM. There are some of them that are not, that fit the bill of science, technology, in those 4 kind of letters, but there are others that are also STEM. And I took this right actually from the ICE, which is also part of the Department of Homeland Security that actually authorizes or confirms the STEM designations here in the US for all of the programs. So here's just a few to kind of expand your kind of notion of what STEM could entail. Education, there's certainly a lot of different programs within education that can actually be STEM designated. And that's a little more in the technology realm, but there's also research that also can be part of that STEM designation for education. You've got agriculture, livestock management. So they may be a little bit esoteric, but in certain countries, there's certainly, that's a very big attraction. And so that might be something that one would not necessarily think normally as being a STEM type of a program. Last but not least, my favorite, because this is the area that I work in, is business. So at GW, we have a number of STEM degree programs. And they're all around business, but certainly it does focus a lot with the technology and the math piece of that 4-letter word. So when you think about master's programs in general, sometimes finding the right one can be quite arduous. And I just wanted to give you a few pointers about how one might go about finding the right program. For one, in that list right there, you've got the location, ranking, and this is just a short list. There could be other ones that are important to you, but I've just sampled about 5 or 6 of them that I have seen to be pretty consistent when I ask folks about, why you chose our school, for example. And for one, ours is usually location. Being in DC, we tend to get a lot of folks that are interested in business and politics and consulting. And so for us, that tends to be the #1 answer. But there are also format. Do you want to learn in person? Is there a hybrid opportunity? What are the requirements for the program? Am I going to get the curriculum that I'm seeking in order to help me advance in my career. And another one, which is a big one to consider, is the cost parameters. The second bullet, though, I want to address is making sure you understand the full scope of each program that you're considering. So not all names of programs are the same. They may have the same name, but the curriculum may be different. And I'm just going to give you 3 examples right here from GW that I often get questions of, and they're actually from 3 different schools within the university. So we have 3 different STEM programs when it comes around analytics and data. So data analytics is coming from, I think it's our CCAS, which is our Columbian College. Then you've got data science, which could be coming from our engineering school. And then you have business analytics, which is coming from our business school. And so what are the differences? From the onset, I could, if I didn't know anything, I would say there is no difference, but in fact, there are. And for one, data science is probably the most broad of the 3, where you're going to be learning about data in terms of foundation, statistics, programming, but that can be used across industries, such as in business, healthcare, even in humanities. When you're thinking about data analytics, that's where you're merging between the computer science and the engineering and systems. So it's really a compilation of those 2 kind of focus areas, and that's where you're going to be learning more in the data analytics. At GW, we have 2 different tracks. We have the computer science track, and then we have the engineering management and systems engineering. Then the last one is our business analytics, and this comes from our business school. With that, I can intelligently speak a little bit more about, and that's in terms of how you're going to learn about technology analytics and how you can use that to make business decisions. Not only are you learning that, but you're going to be learning some soft skills and leadership, which is also integral in terms of being a successful business leader. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea that, data especially is not a kind of a one size fits all, and our curriculums can be very different. So I do encourage you to take a deep look into the curriculum and make sure you ask questions as well as you go through that. The other thing I think some of the questions had come up is about career outcomes. So I did want to share with you a little bit of the outcomes that have been pulled probably from the last 6 years from all of the 3 kind of programs that I've just outlined. So our data science, our data analytics, and our business analytics. And this is a really, really short list, but of where students have gone. And I narrowed it down because we have this called I think it's called like a Wordle, where the most number of students, the name of the company is bigger versus let's say if there's only 1 student, then you barely see the name of the company. And so these are the ones that actually were pretty prominent in the Wordle. And so wanted to just share with you what some of the career outcomes and opportunities, at least at GW, have had, especially when it comes to the data analytics program. Another question that was coming up a lot in the questions was outcomes along with salaries. So I thought I could share a little bit, which is a very reasonable question to ask when you're spending time and money in a graduate program. So I wanted to share with you, this is also in the same time period in where the percentage of students are earning more than $100,000 in these kind of designated programs. So the computer science, we have more than 25%, engineering management, you see at 42, analytics is at 27, project management's 49, and data science at 23. This is the top echelon. I would say now this figure is probably even a little bit higher. And it's really just because, salaries have gone up quite a bit in these areas because there's just not as much students who are as focused, are concentrating in STEM, which is why we want international students to come and provide their expertise and learn and stay and be part of the working community here in the United States. So a quick look at what a master's application timeline might look like. Most of the schools will have a spring and or a fall start. So a lot of our engineering programs as well as our business school programs have both a spring and fall entry. I encourage students to take part in webinars and info sessions as general as this, but also schools offer virtual info sessions programmatically specific as well. So if you're able to do that, you know, learn as much as you can and pose your questions when it's appropriate while you're listening to those events. And prepare for any tests, you know, so the timeline in this could be maybe a year long of preparation or maybe 3 months. You know, it really just depends on the type of score that you're looking to aim in order to submit for your application. English proficiency, I would say comfortably is a requirement as an international student for the vast majority of US schools. We are taking more tests. So I think the TOEFL is pretty standard. The IELTS is standard. The Duolingo is one that I'm seeing more and more are being accepted as well. We also accept the Duolingo, which is a test that you can take at the comfort of your own home, and you get your scores fairly quickly. GMAT and GRE have become more and more of an optional component, really as a result of the pandemic. But for some of the more competitive schools, you will see that it is still a requirement. So double check and see if that is something that you need to prepare and submit, depending on the school. For most of our engineering and our business programs, they are optional. So when that word comes up, sometimes students are like, what does that mean? You know, do I do it or not? And that's where you need to do a little bit of a self-evaluation and assess if that would actually, submitting a score would actually help you as an applicant. Sometimes your GPA might be too low and there's really nothing you can do about that, right? It's in the past for many folks, and therefore, you know, supplementing your application with a test score could certainly boost more of you know, your candidacy for that program. Another one that's equally important, that's a requirement, is transcripts. And so you do need to have all of your, for the vast majority, schools will accept unofficial transcripts for the sake of the application review and submission. But we will need official transcripts should you become admitted. And so the piece about the evaluation is that there are some universities will do evaluations in-house and others will request you to get that done externally. What is an evaluation? An evaluation is having your transcripts, which are probably not in English, to be translated and made equivalent to a US 4.0 scale. So in this, you know, various countries have different ratings, different scales. And so companies like WES, Spantran, IEE, those are all service agencies that actually can do your evaluation. And that's something that most schools do require. They also will do them in-house. And so at GW, we will do them in-house, but it is something that we don't do automatically. You will need to request to have that done. And then continuing on with the typical application would be a copy of a resume, a recommendation letter or two. So for engineering, we require 2, and business level, we require 1. And last but not least would be the statement of purpose, which is your essay question. And sometimes schools have more than one, and others will not even do the essay. They'll ask you to sign up for an interview. So these are just some things that might be different from school to school, but I would say the vast majority of what you see on your screen is what is expected for you to be to be eligible and then to apply as an applicant. All right, Audra, I'm going to turn it over to you. So
Thank
if you
you,
just tell me
Sean.
when to advance, but I'll go ahead and mute myself. I can just get there. Okay.
Let's move forward. So thank you, Sean, for walking us through the STEM and specifically master's programs in STEM. I will address the next level of studies, which is the PhD. And maybe to begin with, it is really important to understand the differences between a master's degree and a PhD degree. Historically, a PhD degree was a platform that prepared all the academia, that eventually ended up teaching at universities. Today, increasingly so, PhD degrees are applicable in industries, in government, and in corporations where research and development is conducted. So making a decision whether a PhD is the right degree for you requires for you to explore a list of questions, and those were just some of the questions that you should have in mind. PhD is a time commitment to begin with, an average of 6 years for a STEM program. Financial implications do not necessarily mean that the program is costly, but it means that while you are in the PhD program, you have the opportunity cost of the PhD. You are foregoing the income that you could have been making while you are spending years and years on your PhD degree. Trying to explore the careers that will be open to you and deciding whether it is the track that you want to pursue, and being dedicated and passionate about a specific research topic or area that you are willing to spend the next few years of your life doing and pursuing. And all PhD programs look for very self-motivated, confident, and independent students. Many STEM PhD programs will have you in a lab working by yourself, and professors really are looking for those students who will demonstrate a high level of independence. Next, please, Ming. Thank you. So if you do decide that PhD is the right level of education for you, first, it is, as always, not enough to just pick one program. PhD will be the most competitive program to enter anywhere you look in the United States and possibly in the world as well. While on undergraduate level, thousands of students are admitted, on graduate level into master's programs, sometimes hundreds. Some PhD programs admit only 3 to 4 students per year. Some PhD programs admit students only every few years, since they do not have enough mentors for PhD candidates. So a good rule of thumb is to pick at least 6, 7, up to 10 PhD programs that have a good academic background fit for you. So not only is your undergraduate GPA, your undergraduate grades a good fit, but also the research that is conducted by those institutions is compatible to your research interests. R1 is the highest level of research in the United States, and R1 universities will likely conduct nationally and internationally renowned research projects that you may want to pursue. Mentors are professors who work on specific research projects at the universities, and those are people with whom you will spend years of your life if you are accepted to the program and the mentor is assigned to you. Most PhD programs will come with some type of funding, many of them with full funding. We will talk about it later, but funding typically happens in a form of a graduate assistantship. So teaching assistantships, research assistantships, which require that you work for the department, and in return, department fully covers your tuition, your health insurance, and provides you with a living stipend of maybe $20,000 to $30,000 per year. And once you have all of these factors already identified and you still have too many institutions, then just figuring out climate, location, a community at the university, those might be just the last steps you want to take to make a decision. Next, please, Sean. PhD application elements are not quite dissimilar to the elements of a master's application. The big difference here is the statement of purpose, or the essay, or sometimes it's called a dissertation proposal. The statement of purpose is a document that you will create where you do not need to explain anything about your academic background anymore. You do not need to talk about your personal life or personal stories. A statement of purpose is specifically a platform for you to address your research interests. And not only to address your research interests, but to draw parallels between your research interests and the professors at the university or the program at the university that will allow you to pursue those interests. Personal essay is your space. That's where you express how you evolve to be the researcher that you are. You can talk about how your intellectual life has brought you to a specific academic area, where you see yourself going forward. It should make very clear why you're interested in the field, why you're interested in that particular institution and in the program you're applying for, as well, of course, as your research and career goals. Every statement of purpose should be tailored to a specific institution you're applying to. So you will really want to spend more than just a couple of days on those statements of purpose, because you will have to create many of them, and they will have to be very targeted for a specific university. That is going to be your biggest portion of time that you will spend in your application process. Everything else, the letters of recommendation, the standard examinations, be it a GRE or a GMAT for some programs, your curriculum vitae, the transcripts, all of the rest is standard. Most PhD programs will look for at least 3.5 GPA, and I don't really know any that accept students with less than 3.0. Again, remember that very small number of applicants are admitted to PhD, so that is a very highly competitive level of studies. Next, please, Sean. A question we get all the time is, do I need to reach out to the university before applying? As you know, undergraduate students can apply without ever contacting the university, and it is perfectly okay. Most universities expect that graduate students, especially PhD students who are going there to do research, will be able to do the minimum amount of research required to figure out the application requirements, deadlines, the professors, and so on. So those are emails I don't encourage you writing to the graduate school. But there always are questions that are not obviously answered on the website, and that's where you probably will want to reach out either to the graduate school or to the professors directly. As always, when you're writing an email, remember that you are communicating with a university. They want to know why you're reaching out, so just a couple of sentences of introduction, a very general inquiry, and please do not attach any documents right off the bat, because most of the time you are not reaching the person immediately who can help you with those documents. So short, to the point, respectful, and then you will be guided to the right contact person. Next, please. So the graduate school is your contact for questions about very basic admission criteria, GPAs, transcripts. Have you received my transcripts? Have you received my English proficiency results? Have you received the payment for the application fee. Graduate school answers those questions. Graduate school is like the gatekeeper, just ensuring that every applicant meets the absolute minimum criteria. They do not make any admissions decisions for graduate programs. They do not read your purposes of statement, and they have no interest in your research proposals. So that is your first stop, just checking your documents. And if you have questions about whether or not your documentation has been received, the graduate school is the place to go. Every graduate school's website will have a list of programs and a list of program directors, who are called the directors of graduate studies. Those are your contact people in specific departments where you may be interested to study. And you may apply, you may want to reach out to them in instances where graduate school can no longer assist you. Next, please, Sean. So the professors can be the directors of graduate studies. All the directors are professors, but they rotate. So it's a different DGS every year. But usually we'll contact the professors when you are not quite sure about the academic fit, when you want to know if they will be accepting any PhD candidates this coming year. If you're inquiring about specifics of their research, about joining a very particular program in their lab, anything program related, research related, even funding, but maybe not with the very first email, all of that should be directed to the department. So Director of Graduate Studies and professors whose research you found fascinating on the website. If you have been communicating with the professor for a while and they show an interest in you, then sharing with them your CV may be a good idea, because that may give them a better insight into who you are. Next, please. So PhD application timeline, I was very detailed with it. But since EducationUSA Tokyo has graciously offered to put the session on YouTube, I think you will be able to go back and take a look at it, even if you need to later. Something I did not mention in the materials or on the timeline are interviews. And interviews are an integral part usually of a PhD application process. However, they come out after your application is submitted. So you need to pass that first round of reviews. You need to be pre-screened and selected for the finalist pool in order to have an interview scheduled. And I'm sure there are sessions about how to prepare for a graduate school interview and how to be successful in an interview, but that might take an entire session, so we will not linger there. But as you see, your preparation for the application starts a year in advance, because it does take a very long time looking through the research projects at even just R1 universities, of which you have a couple hundred. So figuring that out, your professors, current professors, may be a great help in figuring it out. Do not forget that many PhD programs will admit you even just with a bachelor's degree. A master's degree is not always required to enter a PhD program. More important than your academic background and even your GPA will be the research that you conducted. And most of the time, the depth of your research is going to be much more important than the breadth of it. So how many labs you joined and if you were jumping from one thing to another will be much less attractive to the program than if you spent dedicated 2 years working with a professor on a particular project. We had students coming out of our undergraduate medical lab sciences, joining straight a PhD program in public health in Harvard. I had a student coming out of a biology program who went to Cornell straight into the PhD program there. So the research that you do as an undergraduate at the university can absolutely be enough for you to enter a PhD program. Those professors with whom you conduct research will also be your best advocates and will be able to write strong letters of recommendation for you because they will know your work. Recommendations should always be written by people who know your academic and research background. It's very significant because while there are many universities, there are not very many great researchers in particular fields, and chances are many of them know each other. The academic culture worldwide is full of collaboration, cordial interactions, hopefully, and it is always good to have your professor support and input when you're choosing the programs and when you're applying to them. Next, please. Last but not least is the funding. So as I mentioned, most funding on PhD level comes through graduate assistantships, and we have the teaching and the research assistantships. The assistantships, full-time assistantships, will have you work at the department up to 20 hours a week, and in return, the department will fully cover your tuition cost, your health insurance, and will pay a stipend. Stipends vary from program to program and from university to university. There are very poor programs. In our university, Education comes to mind. It is not a very wealthy program for international students. There are wealthy programs, and STEM programs are definitely in that pool. Business programs can be also generous. So it really depends on the university and on the program. Sometimes communicating with the DGS and with the department about the funding is very important because they may not know that you are interested in it. While PhD candidates most of the time will be asked to work as a teaching assistant at least for a bit, it is not always automatic. So at some point, you may want to reach out to the department and tell them that you are interested in that. And the earlier you start communicating with them, the better. But I suggest you always first apply to the university and then communicate about funding, because that will show to the department that you are serious about your intention to study there. I believe that is, Sean, do you have anything to add about the funding?
Yeah, so this last kind of two were for me in the sense of opportunities for master's students, but there's also PhD opportunities as well through IIE, the Funding US Study, and then this is a little new to me, but I did some poking around. I collaborated with our engineering school to see if there were any unique funding opportunities that master's students might be able to kind of look into. And this is outside of the university, and it's called pathways-to-science.org. It's really a repository of many, and it's focused on STEM. So, but it's a repository allowing students to kind of filter for different programs, and it's also for international students. Many of them are available for international students as well, both in the engineering, you've got the business, and again, in that general STEM field. So I do encourage you to look. I had a student come in who yesterday actually said, where might I look for some additional funding? And I said, well, actually, you caught me right at the right time because she's an MBA student and is doing an MBA STEM program with us and was able to direct her. And for one of them, it was up to $18,000. So a very nice scholarship in some of these sites that, has really done a good job in putting them together in one place. And I think that's it for us in terms of our presentation piece. But this is our information, our contact, name and our email, and then I think it's our website as well, should you be interested in any of our programs and want to take a look further in that.
And I believe we did have quite a list of questions that we may not be able to address all of them, but we can try to go through as many as we can. Sean, what do you think if I read out the question and then we, yes?
Yes.
This question is, I would like to know if I should contact my lab professor or others in advance of my application. I believe I addressed that. I think it is a good idea to communicate with the professors, but please do your research on the website. Some websites will tell you specifically to not contact anyone, and then please don't. But if they don't say, do not email the professors, I think it is a good idea to communicate with them. The next question is, I am thinking of applying to the Master of Public Health program. Any suggestions? So most public health program applications have one joint, well, there is one joint application in the United States for public health programs that is called SOFAS. And a master's degree does not require necessarily a statement of purpose. You submit your application through SOFAS. You can pick a number of universities where you're interested in studying, and you complete any supplementary requirements through that one application. This is actually one of the easier ways to apply to a graduate program in the US, since it is all consolidated in one portal. The requirements and recommended activities. What are requirements and recommended activities to be accepted into the doctoral program? I think I also spoke about that. Research, the quality of your research is key. Sean, maybe you can address this.
Yes,
I would like to know.
Go ahead.
Are you looking at this? Question number 4 is, I would like to know the challenges to studying in a US graduate school after obtaining a bachelor's degree at a Japanese university. Options and choices of graduate schools, differences in skills acquired and experience gained compared to those gained by entering a domestic graduate school. Abilities required in addition to obtaining a degree.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And one thing I will tell you is that as admission advisors, we don't compare students. We look at you in relation to you, what you have provided, the program requirements, and therefore it is really a holistic review. And therefore we don't compare you as an international student necessarily. I mean, we don't, but in terms of how you would compare to a domestic student. I would similar to kind of what I shared earlier in the presentation, is look at the program that you're looking to pursue. Look at the requirements, the skills, perhaps that some of them do have some requirements in terms of hard skills. So for example, business analytics and a lot of the data, they require some level of understanding of Python or R and some higher level math. So that would be at least in calculus, statistics, linear algebra, or multivariable. And so even if you had that in Japan, that's not anything less or different than you taking it here in the US. So we're just looking, and again, that's where that transcript evaluation will also be helpful for the recruiter and the admissions committee as well. So just to, simplify, it's, don't think about others, just focus on like what's important to you by looking at the curriculum and the program that programs that you want to pursue, and take note of the skills that you need. And many of the programs are, you don't need work experience. So perfectly fine to go into programs, just like Audra had said about PhD. Similarly, like a lot of the engineering are not looking necessarily for work experience, but we are looking for certain aptitudes in certain skills. So again, unlike like an MBA where we tend to look for some more work experience, others might be more like on that research side, or what have you done in that area that would make sense as to why you want to pursue an MS in engineering management, for example.
Okay, so The next question is, what is the proportion of international students for each country? I'm not sure exactly if that pertains to the United States or specific institutions, but in the United States, the majority of students, almost 30% of students, come from China, India, and Korea. And then when you look at graduate level, then it tends to really veer into different directions. If I think it would be best probably if you're interested at a particular university to look on their website and see what is the international student composition, because all universities will have that on their websites. Number 7. Sean, would you like to take
Yeah,
that?
7 is please explain the details of scholarships available to Japanese students offered by the university. So I think we addressed scholarship a little bit, and then I believe there was something that Tamako had also had linked for scholarships as well for Japanese students. So we personally at GW, thank you, don't have anything specific for Japanese students. Some institutions may, through generous donations and specific alumni that would like to kind of continue to encourage students perhaps from their own country, and therefore by offering some scholarships. So I would encourage you, you can certainly, a lot of web pages on schools have a scholarship section where you can look, and sometimes there are institutions where if you really want a specific scholarship, there will be those requirements and ask you for a separate essay. At GW, we don't have that. We automatically consider you for our pool of scholarships, but we don't necessarily ask you for a separate essay. But some schools do, and that's where again, it's more or less school specific.
I agree with Sean. It will be very school specific. On master's level, the departments may be in control of the scholarships. On PhD level, the professors who are conducting research and have the funding for research may be the ones who will have the determining voice in it. So it is not very clean cut, unlike with undergraduate programs, where scholarship programs tend to be very clear. If you have this GPA, you get so much money. So it's unfortunately a bit more complicated with graduate programs. The next question we have is about someone who is currently a first-year graduate student majoring in pharmacy at a Japanese university. He will graduate in a year and is hoping to study abroad in a PhD program. However, they are not sure how to contact the university, the lab, and they would like to know how to proceed. Well, incidentally, the University of Kentucky has one of the top pharmacy colleges in the United States. And as such, it is very competitive. The College of Pharmacy has different PhD tracks. You have a PharmD, which is a professional doctoral program, and you have a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences, which is a research program. And even so, it is not necessarily geared toward academia only. It is very much an industry PhD because R&D in pharmaceutical sciences is huge. You literally go to the university's website, you type in the word College of Pharmacy, and the programs will come up. You can then read about the program. You can click on the names of the professors who are teaching there. You'll see each professor's research field. You can find the research that is the most compatible with the research that you are doing or are interested in, and reach out to them. So that's where you start. So before you start, you should always know what the program does and offers. As I mentioned before, on PhD level, professors may get slightly irritated if you ask them something that is clearly stated on the website. If they have a name and they tell you what they research, and then you ask them, but do you do this? it's not a good way to establish contact with someone whom you want for a mentor. So make sure that you put an effort into researching the professors and then reach out to them. In the College of Pharmacy, for the PharmD, there is a different examination that one takes, as opposed to Pharmaceutical Sciences PhD, where GRE is accepted. So again, once you decide if you want a PharmD or a PhD, you will know which tests to take, but all of those requirements will be listed on the university's website. So find a few R1 College of Pharmacy PhD programs, check their requirements, and then based on all the other criteria that we try to touch upon, decide which ones are good for you or a good fit for you.
Okay,
The
Audra,
next-
I think there is one question in the chat, if I could just share that one. And it's actually probably a question for you.
Okay.
I'm planning to apply math and statistics PhD program. My current job in Japan is related in this field, but my undergrad study and master's are not. Is there any advice for the statement of purpose, professor connections, etc.?
Okay, so that's a really good question, because a lot of times life takes you in unknown ways, and you start out with something and end up doing something entirely different. We have all been there. I have been there, and it is no surprise that one may find themselves in that situation. If you recall, I said that for a PhD program, the key answer or the key question to answer is your research. What research have you done? What research can you present to the professor as something you're passionate about? And you don't have to necessarily be published. You can just have spent time working in labs. And if you have been doing that in your current career, then you can definitely write about it in your statement of purpose. Your undergraduate and master's degrees ideally would not be entirely out of scope, because if you have an MBA or a master's in history, but you want to join a PhD in pharmaceutical science, that will not work, because you do not have the prerequisites. You don't have the academic scope. There is an academic background you need to have to be compatible with the PhD program. But if your PhD program coursework is not terribly different from what you did on your master's level, if there is an overlap there, you may be able to complete the missing prerequisites in your first couple of years when you are taking the courses. Many PhD programs will incorporate the master's into them. As I mentioned before, you can even apply with your bachelor's degree. So a couple of years of coursework may cover those missing bases, as long as the research that you can present to the professors is something that you think they will be excited about. So if you find an institution, if you find a department that has a research program or project where you see yourself as a good fit, then by all means, please reach out to them. And if they like what you do, they will be the ones who will help you navigate all the obstacles to join their program.
Okay, Audra, I think we have just a few more minutes, maybe less than that. So I'm just going to choose a couple here that I think we haven't quite addressed. And I think for us, it would be 13. So I'd like to also know about part-time jobs for international students. It's a question on campus or outside of the campus. So I can just start here. As an international student, you do have some restrictions when it comes to working off campus. On campus, you can start as day one, and you are limited to 20 hours a week, which is for us in the US, a part-time job. Our typical week is 40 hours. And so you can work at the bookstore. I have students at front desk of our admissions office. Those are all available to you to apply as a student as soon as you commit and join, start the program. If you are looking to work outside of the campus, you do have to study up to 2 semesters to then be eligible for CPT. And that's curricular practicum training, if I'm not mistaken. And so that allows students to work both off campus or on campus while you are studying full time as a student. So every school in terms of opportunities are different, but those are the kind of the laws of the land instituted by DHS for international students. Anything you want to add there, Audra?
No, I think you covered it. Just that the PhD students who do get a TA-ship automatically get that 20-hour workload. So
Correct.
every teaching assistant and research assistant who is on a full assistantship automatically has the 20 hours maximized already. So they will not be taking on additional jobs at Starbucks, for example.
The other thing I will add, and because we are at GW, we are a private school, and University of Kentucky is a public school. So therefore, one of the things to consider that I often get, because we're a private school, is do you offer scholarships through offering a assistantship or a graduateship? And the answer for us is no. For us, we don't package any type, and this is strictly for master's students, we don't package any of our kind of scholarshiping around that. Students are certainly welcome to apply for those jobs when they're on campus, but that's not how we package it. Now, some universities will have the ability and perhaps the bandwidth to go ahead and offer them on the onset of and package it as part of a scholarship, but just know that that's not always common practice.
And then I will very quickly bundle up almost all the other questions into one, because there is a lot of uncertainty about, is it better to get a master's degree in the US if I want to do a PhD in the US? Is it important to have a work experience, and why do they want it? And who should correct my statement of purpose? And the answer is, as I mentioned, if you are doing great research in Japan, it doesn't matter. You can be doing great research anywhere in the world on top of Mount Everest. As long as your research is great, the universities in the US will want you to join them. It is about your research. It is not where you did it. It also doesn't matter at that point if you had work experience. You can be an undergraduate student doing great research and have no work experience. Work experience is more significant in some executive business programs than in STEM programs. And as far as statement of purpose, I would say if you're unsure about it, go to your professor, because a statement of purpose is about research. I don't think that any third party can help you out with that, because they're not going to be privy to all the research details. So your professors are going to be your best friends in trying to coin that perfect statement of purpose, or 2, or 5, or 7, depending on how many universities you're applying to.
I think there's one more here, and please, Tamako or anyone from EducationUSA, please stop us if we're going to go way over. It's a question about, I'm an experienced software engineer. Can I pursue a master's degree in AI or related field without leaving my full-time job in Tokyo? So I think you're referring to really the only option, which would be an online master's program. It would not be something that you could do, as I mentioned, along with those rules in terms of how the limitations you have to work in the US, because you are required to be a full-time student as an international student, and that is equivalent to 9 credits at a minimum. And so, you know, those are the rules deemed by the DHS, and therefore you would have to, in order to keep your status, learn fully as a full-time student and not work until you have, you know, exceeded those 2 semesters and get the appropriate documentation.
Unless, as you mentioned, they study fully online, and there may be universities that will offer full online master's degrees in that field. So it's possible. We are probably not those institutions, but it is possible.
Yeah, it can be challenging. I do have students studying abroad online, but it's not very easy.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Thank you. Thank you, Audra. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Hope you find questions with this session, and hopefully it was very helpful for you guys. And as I mentioned before earlier, we have Education USA STEM Virtual Fair, which is EAP East Asia and the Pacific region. So not only Japan, but other countries around us will be there. So maybe you can talk to them as well. But well, until next time. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.